Welcome to Abstractly African, where culture is a compass, ancestry is a resource, and transformation is a shared practice. I am Daniela Ayomide, and this week's cultural education is all about understanding the spiritual body. In African cosmology, our life experiences are understood to interact simultaneously with different dimensions. More simply, we go through life with interactions in our emotional body, our spiritual body, and our mental body. Our emotional body, as we went through last week, is a landscape. It's a range of experiences and feelings and emotions that we get to choose from, like a blueprint that then guides us forward to emotional freedom. The spiritual body is more of a container. Our spiritual body is where our ashe resides. The ashe in African cosmology is the creative life force that animates all living systems, objects, and beings. The ashe is your creative innate energy that drives you and inspires you daily. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. I understand spirit as the energy of all there is. Spirit is the expression of Ashe. Now, if you're coming from a Christian background, you might have heard words like God, Holy Spirit, Jesus. In African cosmology and in the East, spirit is an all-encompassing energy, but it is not a fixed energy or even an entity. Spirit is both reality and memory at the same time. When you think of science, right, and you think of the first elements that ever existed in space and time, the container of those experiences for those elements is spirit. We're going to go on a bit of a trippy ride here, but I know you're tracking with me. Words that resonate with spirit would be memory. I would even say transcendence. And I would also say, knowing. So memory, transcendence, and knowing. I once heard a really interesting quote from a Black woman, a master teacher. And the quote goes like this: "I know because my spirit remembers." A lot of the time when you talk about spiritual health, there is always a spiritual authority. In understanding a new relationship to spirituality, we understand that authority happens from an inward place, from a place of self-governance. Now, I brought up this quote because it really helped me understand my own spiritual practice, a nature-based practice that is rooted in Ifa, the Yoruba spiritual tradition, honoring the messengers of the energy of all there is, called the Orisha. They're also called the forces of nature. And also honoring the ancestors through veneration, meditation, and prayer. And divination, right? With the Opon Ifa. I know because my spirit remembers. Now, spirit as an expression of memory is really highlighting the concept of our DNA being attached to some of the first human beings that existed in space and time. The idea that we can track back, so long as we have the record, our ancestors, and then the ones before, and the ones before, and the ones before, and the ones before. Now, memory is really interesting. You can experience collective memory, which is what we call the past. You can experience forward memory, which is what we call the future, when you remember something that is yet to come. If the past, present, and future are all one experience, then our memory working in both directions has the ability to reveal information to us. Spiritual memory is what we experience when we say we have a download. Oh, I just got a download. There's something that is coming in from the ether to transposit information in my present consciousness. So memory really is almost like a shadow of something that has existed before. Memory is the impact of something that you then bring into your forward consciousness. So it should not surprise you that the memories of all of your ancestors, through their DNA, through their lineage, resides in your consciousness today, so long as you are open and willing to access it. How do you access your spiritual memory? This is where understanding the body in 3 dimensions really takes hold. Because in order to access your spiritual memory, you have to activate the other parts of your life experience that support it. That would be your emotional body and your mental body. So in the emotional body, many of us have experienced traumas, things that impact us, that leave an impact, right? Trauma is our mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical memory of things that have happened in space and time that have wounded us, right? So when we think of accessing spiritual memory, why would we want to do that in the first place? Sometimes I ask my ancestors for guidance. Actually, I ask them for guidance all the time. Now, in order to receive their guidance, my spiritual body has to be open and willing. I have to release ideas of fixed space and time to understand the cosmic womb, the energy of all there is. Then I interact with my physical body. I spend time in nature. I move around, sacred dancing sometimes. But all of these things support the revealing of my spiritual memory. You'd be surprised what happens when you take time to dance intentionally, to sing intentionally, in a way that recalls the strength, love, courage, and confidence of those who came before you. Now, let's talk about the Ori. Our consciousness is dual. It's not binary, as in we think one way or another. Chances are we are moving constantly from one idea to the next, replacing, hopefully, old information with new information as it is revealed to us. The Ori in Ifa, in the Yoruba tradition, is the Orisha that guides your spirit, your destiny, your ashe. The Ori who guides my life, my Ori, is Oshun. I am Omo Oshun, child of Oshun. I love African cosmology because it's so different and unique from other belief systems. When we're born, our spirit chooses our Ori. Our spirit chooses the energy that it resonates with deeply. Then in this physical realm, we journey through life with our Ori to help us reach our highest destiny. An Awo or an Iya might tell you to consult your Ori. What that means is you better ask your Orisha, what am I doing? I like to work with my Ori through the same means: ritual, prayer, time in nature. My Orisha, Oshun, is associated with fresh waters, rivers, and streams. They are also associated with sunlight radiance. So whenever I'm out and I want to honor my Ori, whenever I'm outside or near bodies of water, I take a moment to speak to the water, to speak to my Orisha. Where that comes in to my spiritual life and the spiritual body is that it helps me stay in tune with my highest destiny, with my ashe being elevated. My energy is elevated every time I interact with Oshun through water, right? Through ritual and prayer, by feeding her, giving her offerings of fruit, all those things. Whenever I interact with my Ori, I am charting myself on a course that is guided by a higher intelligence that also mirrors my own reality. As above, so below. I understand that in order to truly not get distracted by challenges from life, to not have my self-concept reworked by some external idea, in order to truly stay focused and understand the inner workings of my creative journey, I consult my Ori. This is where it gets really interesting. I also like to think of the Ori as an expression of my future self that I work with in present time. Time being a fluid experience that I get to co-create with allows me to see that my future self is already doing the things that I dream of. My future self isn't in some other dimension. My future self is in space and time. And when I decide to act with my future self, I'm really interacting with two realms. I'm interacting with my Ori to align myself to my highest path. And then because I've made that decision, I'm co-creating with the version of me that has now charted this path forward and is already doing certain things. To break this down, I want to reference Christian faith, right? Christian theology. Here's where there's a major distinction between African cosmology and Christian theology. In Christian theology, spiritual information is imparted downward and horizontally, right? If you think of the cross, we receive information from, I'm going to use the Christian words, right? God, that then brings that information down through some mediating means, right? We might call that Jesus. And then that information gets spread horizontally to the masses. Now, where things are kind of turned on their end is sometimes this understanding of spiritual information creates cognitive dissonance, where you have an authority that is bringing information down through a vessel or a mediator and then extending that information out. Cognitive dissonance is what happens when your internal world happens to disagree with an external authority, but consciously you make the decision to stay in the space of information that is culturally comfortable, societally approved, and approved by authority, even though what might be happening internally disagrees with that. Do with that information what you will. The remedy to cognitive dissonance is what we go back to in the beginning. I know this spiritual information because my spirit remembers. So in reality, turning this experience on its end, in African cosmology, the experience of spiritual information is both and. We are drawn in by the previous experiences throughout human history to where we can access information from those people's experiences, right? I know not to put my purse on the floor because that was what my grandmother told me. Don't ever put your purse on the floor. All of my great aunts and my grandmother always said that. They knew not to put their purse on the floor because someone in their bloodline years before put their purse or belongings on the floor, someone walked by and swiftly took it. So the information that's passed down as spiritual guidance, right, from their ancestors to them to me is, hey, be mindful of your belongings and don't put them in a place where they can be taken easily. So we see the information stream coming from the horizontal experience, people, and then that information also is understood in a vertical sense, where we're interacting with the Ori, the cosmos, and our future self to understand our present human experience. Intuition is what should guide your journey. Intuition is more than just a gut feeling. Intuition is the expression of your ashe. If you are in space and time, already achieving your goals, already going for them, but you're still here in the present, it's your intuition that will guide you to the fulfillment of your dreams. Ashe. Intuition, when used as a guide spiritually, what happens as a result is an experience of autonomy and self-governance. Autonomy is what happens when you become the spiritual authority, where you interact with energy being all around you and all informing, but it's not ruling you. Rather, your intuition is the compass that guides you and helps you interpret spiritual and elemental information from your environment and experiences. Self-governance is key to healing your spiritual body. Self-governance is what happens when you decide to chart your own course based on the spiritual experiences and information that you have already. That was a lot that we went through, but I want to make sure we understand each point. The Ashe is the energy of all there is. It animates our lives and brings energy to living systems and beings. The Ashe is essentially the expression of our spirit. I know because my spirit remembers. This is what happens when you access ancestral memory as part of your present experience that can inform your pathway forward. Understanding the Ori helps us understand how to stay on track with our highest destiny. Sorry, I'm sweating. And lastly, your future self, already completing and going for the dreams that you've established in space and time, works with present you and your Ori to keep you on track, moving forward, and to help with your inner standing. Intuition and self-governance happen when we decide to take our spiritual journey into our own hands. Sorry, I'm so sweaty. I was nervous recording this episode because it's really important to me. Thank you for being here with Abstractly African, where culture is a compass, ancestry is a resource, and transformation is a shared practice. Tune in next week where our cultural education will cover the mental body, understanding mental health and our mental experiences from the perspective of African cosmology. I am Daniela Ayomide, and I'll see you next week.